Okay, so now we're back, and you might be saying to yourself, hang on a second, why are we staring at Logic Pro X? I thought this was a machine tutorial. And that's because we're going to explore how to use machine inside of Logic Pro X. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is put an instance of machine inside of Logic. We're going to open it as a plugin. So we're going to go right here on our instrument track and go to AU Instruments, Native Instruments folder, and Machine Multi-Output. If you happen to put a stereo version of machine, doesn't really matter. You can switch it to a multi-output at any time inside of Logic, and it will work just the same. Okay, so here we have now an instance of machine, and we're going to, as usual, find a nice little drum pattern that we can use for our example. So let's head on over to the groups category. Let's go to kits, and let's go to drum synth kits, and let's pick something from here, and we're going to try Fury kit. Okay, so before we start doing routings inside of Logic, we're just going to press play and see what we're working with. Okay, pretty simple, funky little drum loop. That's quite perfect for what we need to do. And if we take a look at all the sounds being used in this sequence, we have about 9 different sounds. We have a kick, snare, we have a close hat, we have a shaker, we have an open hi-hat, all the way down the list. Now currently, they're all playing through one output. So as you see, we can highlight, and because it's in preview mode, it's actually previewing each one of the sounds, and you can see it shows up on one channel inside of Logic. All the sounds are outputting on the same channel. Okay, so we want to fix that. So we're going to go back here to our input-output selector, and we are already on the output tab. We're going to go right here to audio, and we're going to change the destination of the audio output. Now, when you check out the drop-down menu, you see you have choices here for external 1 through 16. So this is where we're actually going to route the audio internally from machine inside of Logic. We're going to use the external out. So starting from external 1 on the kick to 2 on the snare, 3 on the hi-hat, and we're going to go 4 on the open hi-hat. External 5 will correspond to sound slot number 5, and we're going to continue this way until we have every sound slot here within this group routed to an external output in a consecutive fashion. Now keep in mind here that we're not using all of the outputs here. We're not going to use all 16 outputs, but for simplicity's sake, we're going to assign them just the same, just so that we don't get confused when we start trying to match up our outputs with our sounds. Okay, so we're almost finished now. I'm going to go all the way down, 11, 12. Actually, you have to make sure as well that you scroll down and see what else you might have, because sometimes you have sounds which are not displayed in your current view. So just make sure you grab everything and route everything accordingly. And we're almost finished. 14, 15, one more now, sound number 16. Okay, so that's it. We have all the routing for all of our sounds in our group to the external outputs 1 through 16. Okay, so let's leave machine for a minute. Let's head back over to Logic, and let's go into the mixer view. And in the mixer view in Logic, you can see here we have a little plus sign right on the instrument channel where we have machine loaded. Now when we hit this plus sign, it's going to explode the mixer view into discrete channels because we chose a multi-output instrument. So as you keep pressing plus, you get more and more audio channels. And we're going to go all the way down until we have our 16 audio channels. Of course, you can see these are named auxiliary 1 through 15 because the first channel that we have here, the instrument 1 channel, will actually act as external 1. And the auxiliary channels will pick it up from external 2 until the end. Okay, so let's head back to machine right now, and we're going to see that kick fury, for example, will be playing through external 1 channel, and snare will be playing through the external 2 channel, and it's going to continue on down the line. So let's press play and have a look at our Logic mixer, and hopefully we'll see that all the sounds are coming up on their own mixer channels. Our meters are in the red, so let's pull them down just a bit. Okay, so there you have it. We have every sound slot in machine assigned to its own mixer channel inside of Logic. However, in the arrangement view, we're still not able to see all of these channels separately, only in the mixer view. So to be able to do that, what we're going to do is shift click all of these auxiliary channels, and then we're going to go into options, and we're going to select create tracks for selected output strips. So once we do that now, When we head back to the arrange window inside of Logic, you're going to see we have created here all of these auxiliary channels here in the arrange window. Now, something interesting to note is if we have a look at the track inspector while we select one of these auxiliary tracks, we're going to take a look at the MIDI assignments for each of these channels. So when we actually drop down here with this little arrow and we can show our assignments, we notice that MIDI channel 1 is assigned to the first track. AUX 1 has MIDI channel 2. As we scroll down the list, you can see the MIDI channels have been organized actually in a consecutive fashion, right? So everybody has its own MIDI channel. So what this means now is that we've got to go to the input of machine and we're going to check the MIDI inputs on all of our sound slots. So we're going to go to the MIDI tab and we're going to assign discrete MIDI channels to each and every sound slot. Make sure it's active and we're going to go in a consecutive manner again, all the way down from 1 through till 16. So what we're doing actually is telling machine to accept MIDI input for each one of these sounds specifically on each channel. So that when we're inside of Logic, whatever we have on Logic outputting on the corresponding MIDI channel is going to trigger the sound inside of machine on that MIDI channel. Okay? Sounds a bit confusing right now, but don't worry about it. You're going to see how simple it is to get your sequence into Logic and have it trigger all the corresponding instruments inside of machine itself. Okay, so we're going to continue going through until we have all of these done. Remember as well, we're actually not going to be using all 16 tracks because we only have 8 instruments. But because of the manner in which the sequence was made inside of machine, we want to make sure that we're not going to make any mistakes moving forward. So we're going to assign every single output. Let's scroll down and grab these guys right here. And we're going to go 3 more. We have 14, assigned to 14, 15, and also 16. So it's a little time consuming, but necessary to make sure that we have everything assigned correctly. It's the tedious detail work that saves us lots of headache further on down the line. Okay, so now we have all 16 tracks assigned out of machine to their respective MIDI channels. And as stated before, for example, on track 5, we actually don't have any MIDI information right here. So just keep that in mind. And also on track 8, we also don't have any MIDI information right here as well. That will be exported into Logic. And also we're going to pay attention to these tracks right here, and also that we have no MIDI information contained in those sound slots. Okay, so quite simply now let's move this so we can get some room. We're going to grab this little icon right here, which is our MIDI export icon button, and we're going to slowly drag this into Logic, and we're going to drop it right here in the arrange window. And when you do that, you can see it actually drops all of the MIDI tracks from machine in a consecutive manner inside of Logic's sequencer window. Now let's take a look at what we have here. We actually have 9 sequence tracks. Let's turn on our loop brace. And now if you remember on the 5th track in machine, it was empty. So we shouldn't have a corresponding MIDI track assigned to the 5th track. So we've got to move this and leave the 5th track open, which is actually auxiliary 4. Because remember, we started with instrument 1 as the first track. We're going to move this down and leave the 7th track open. So auxiliaries 4 and 7 are going to be empty. And the last track goes to auxiliary 15, which corresponds to 16. Let's press play. And now you can see and hear we have all the correct MIDI information being routed to the right sound slots inside of machine. When we open our Logic mixer, we have full control over the audio path of each one of those instruments. Of course, you can go up here and add more plugins as you wish and do further processing on each individual sound. If we go back inside of our machine mixer here, for example, too, you can see that we have the levels corresponding for each one of these outputs, and they're labeled from external 1 through to 16 as well. That matches up to the mixer inside of Logic. Okay, so now you have full control over the individual tracks coming out of machine into Logic. You have the audio control in the mixer, and you also have control now over your MIDI patterns inside of Logic. So you can make adjustments to the sequence and actually delete the MIDI sequence inside of machine itself. And essentially, machine is now running as a plugin inside of Logic, being controlled by Logic sequencer and mixer functions. So that's a look at how to use machine inside of Logic Pro X. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for the next video.